I paid my in-laws' mortgage for 8 years. They called me, just a guest, until I took the house keys back. Mia stood in the hallway of a house she had lived in for 8 years, but it still didn't feel like home. Her mother-in-law walked right past her, not even looking her in the eye, like she didn't exist. There were no photos of Mia anywhere on the walls, not one. When the family sat down for meals, there was never a special seat saved for her. Every birthday, every celebration, she was left out. No one ever planned anything for her. No one ever asked how she felt. She was married to Jay, but to his family, she wasn't really a part of them. She was never called daughter, never treated like one of their own. They always treated her like she was temporary, just someone passing through. But the truth was, Mia had done more for that house than anyone else. Every single month, she paid the mortgage with her own money. She paid for the roof over all their heads, quietly, without asking for thanks. Still, no matter how much she gave, how kind she was, how much she tried to fit in, they never accepted her. It wasn't the house she wanted. It was to be seen, to be respected, to feel like she belonged. But after all those years, she was still just a guest. A guest who paid for everything, but never got love in return. Mia remembered how Jay, her husband, always told her not to worry. He would hold her hand and say, "They just need time, Mia. My family is traditional. They'll come around." At first, she believed him. She thought maybe if she was patient, things would get better. So she smiled through the cold look. She cooked meals for everyone. She cleaned. She helped when they were sick. She gave gifts during the holidays. She did everything a daughter-in-law should do, and more. Whenever the roof leaked, Mia was the one who paid for repairs. When the fridge broke down, it was her money that bought a new one. She covered the grocery bills many times, even when no one thanked her. When someone in the family fell ill, she would quietly pay the medical bills. Not once did she mention it. Not once did she ask for praise. She just wanted to be accepted, to be treated with care. But instead of warming up, the family grew even colder. The more she gave, the less they respected her. It was like the more she tried, the more they saw her as weak. They took her kindness for granted. They thought her silence meant she had no voice. Every little thing she did was ignored. Her opinions were never asked. Her presence was barely noticed. When she spoke, they talked over her. When she entered a room, no one smiled. Mia thought love would change things. She thought if she loved Jay enough and loved his family enough, they would open their hearts to her. But it didn't happen. Instead, it felt like the more she poured herself into the family, the more empty she became inside. She was tired. Tired of giving without receiving. Tired of hoping for change that never came. Tired of pretending she didn't notice the disrespect. Still, every time she shared her feelings with Jay, he would say, "Just wait, Mia. They'll see who you really are." But they didn't. They didn't want to see. They had already decided she wasn't one of them, and that truth hurt more than words could say. Mia wasn't asking for much. Not gifts, not praise, just a little warmth, a little space at the table, a little sign that she mattered. But all she got was cold silence. The day Jay was rushed to the hospital, Mia's world stopped. Her hands were shaking, her heart was racing, and her only prayer was for him to survive. She thought this was the moment the family would finally come together. She hoped, deep inside, that love would show up, that his family would see her pain and treat her with kindness. But instead, something completely different happened. Jay's family didn't comfort her. They didn't ask how she was holding up. They didn't sit beside her or speak softly to her. They stormed the house like it was theirs. Before Jay was even out of surgery, his siblings started acting like they had already buried him. They walked around the house, opening drawers, checking documents, asking strange questions. One of them turned to Mia and said, "You should start packing, just in case." She looked at them, confused. Just in case what? Just in case Jay didn't survive? Just in case she no longer had the right to be in the house she paid for month after month? Mia stood there, frozen, while her heart broke in silence. It was like they were waiting for her to leave, like she was never really part of them, just someone passing through. They didn't ask how she was going to manage the bills or how she was feeling. They were too busy deciding who would take what, who would move into which room, and what they should do with Jay's things. It was cruel, it was fast, and it was cold. They didn't care that she had kept that house running for years. They didn't care that she paid the mortgage, bought the furniture, fixed the plumbing, or filled the kitchen with food. In their eyes, She was never more than a visitor, a helper, a convenience. And now, with Jay in the hospital, they saw an opening to push her out. Mia couldn't believe it. She thought family would come together in times of crisis. But this family, they were showing their true colours. No masks, no fake smiles, just pure greed and disrespect. And for the first time, Mia wasn't just hurt. She was angry at how quickly they moved, angry at how little she meant to them, angry that the house she helped build could be treated like something they owned. This was the turning point, the moment Mia's heart stopped hoping, the moment she realized kindness alone wouldn't protect her. Not here, not with them. The house was quiet that evening, filled only with the low voices of prayer. The whole family had gathered in the living room to pray for Jay's recovery. Mia sat in the corner, holding a folder in her hands. His hospital report. She had picked it up from the doctor herself, wanting to keep everyone informed. Her heart was heavy, but she still hoped the family could come together for Jay. She stood up gently, ready to share what the doctors had said. But before she could even speak, Jay's sister walked across the room and snatched the folder out of Mia's hands. Everyone paused. Then, in a cold voice, she said, "Only family should handle this. She's just a guest." The words cut through the room like a knife. No one said anything. No one defended Mia. Not one person. Mia stood there, frozen, staring at her empty hands. She couldn't believe it. After everything she had done, after 8 full years in that house, she was still seen as an outsider. Her mind flashed through all the memories, standing in the kitchen cooking for the whole family, staying up late to clean up after everyone, paying the mortgage every month without fail, the repairs, the food, the medical bills. So much came from her own pocket. She had poured herself into this family like water, hoping one day they would see her as their own. But in that one moment, it was clear none of it mattered. Not her loyalty, not her love, not her sacrifices. They didn't see her as a wife. They didn't see her as part of the family. To them, she was just a visitor who stayed too long, just a guest who never truly belonged. She looked around the room. No one met her eyes. The same people she fed, helped and supported now acted like she had no right to speak, no right to care for her own husband, no right to even hold his medical papers. It wasn't just disrespect, it was erasure. They wanted her invisible. That night, Mia didn't cry, not in front of them, but something in her heart broke completely. This was the final straw. She realized that no matter how much she gave, no matter how hard she tried, these people had already decided who she was, and to them, she would never be enough. Not because she wasn't kind, not because she wasn't strong, but simply because she wasn't blood. Long ago, when Mia first began helping Jay with the house payments, he did something small, but powerful. One quiet afternoon, he came home with a folded piece of paper. He smiled at her, kissed her hand, and said, "In case something ever happens to me, I want you to be safe." Without making it a big deal, Jay had added Mia's name to the house deed. It was now legally theirs, both of theirs. He knew how much she had been giving. He knew she wasn't just helping, she was building their home with him. Mia was touched by the gesture, but she never showed that paper to anyone, not because she was hiding anything, but because she believed in the family. She thought there would never be a reason to prove anything. To her, love didn't need documents. Respect didn't need stamps or signatures. She thought her actions were enough. She cooked, cleaned, paid bills, and gave everything with her heart. She thought one day they would see her and accept her. But now things were different. The family had crossed every line. They didn't just ignore her anymore. They insulted her, pushed her aside, and treated her like a stranger. They were walking through the house like they owned it, whispering about dividing things, pretending she had no place there. They told her she wasn't family, that she was just a guest. After 8 years of being the backbone of that home, they still saw her as nothing. Mia went into the bedroom and opened her small box of documents. With calm hands, she pulled out the deed, the one with her name printed right beside Jay's. It had been sitting there quietly for years, untouched, waiting. She stared at it for a long time, not with anger, but with a new kind of strength. She had stayed silent out of love, but now silence meant losing her place. Silence meant disrespect, and Mia wasn't going to let that happen anymore. She didn't need to yell. She didn't need to fight. All she needed was this one paper, the proof of everything they tried to deny. They had called her a guest, but the truth was, she wasn't just part of that home. She owned it, and now she was ready to remind them. With quiet confidence and steady hands, Mia folded the paper back up and placed it in her bag. The next time they tried to erase her, she would show them the one thing they didn't expect. She wasn't just helping, she had rights, and she was finally ready to claim them. Jay made it through the surgery. It wasn't easy, but he survived. When he finally opened his eyes and saw Mia sitting beside his hospital bed, holding his hand, he felt safe again. But something was different. Mia's face was calm, but not in the same way it used to be. Her eyes were steady, quiet, strong. She didn't speak much, but Jay could tell. Something inside her had changed. After a few more days, Jay was well enough to go home. But the home he returned to didn't feel the same anymore. It was cold, not because of the weather, but because of the silence. His family barely looked Mia in the eye. They acted like she didn't exist. They spoke in whispers and avoided her. Jay noticed it all, and slowly, the truth hit him. While he was lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life, his family was back home planning like he was already gone. He overheard things, small things at first, but they added up. Things like, "We'll talk about the house later," or "She has no say in this," and one sentence kept ringing in his ears, "She's just a guest." That's when Jay realized something heartbreaking. While Mia stood by him through everything, his own family had turned their backs on her, on them. One quiet evening, Mia called Jay to sit with her. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't bring up the pain. She didn't even ask for an apology. She just reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper. It was the deed to the house, his signature next to hers, proof that they had built a life together, that she wasn't just helping, she was part of everything. Jay looked at the paper, then looked at her. He remembered the day he added her name. It was out of love, out of respect, out of knowing who really stood by him, always. Mia looked into his eyes and finally spoke, softly but clearly. "It's time I own peace." Those 5 words said everything. She wasn't asking for revenge. She wasn't looking to fight. She just wanted peace. A home where she didn't have to beg for respect. A place where she wasn't treated like a stranger. And now, she was ready to make that happen, with or without anyone's approval. Jay nodded. He understood. For the first time, he truly saw the hurt she had been carrying alone. And he knew he had to support her, not just as her husband, but as someone who finally saw the truth. That Mia was not just his wife. She was the heart of the home. And it was time the whole world knew it too. One quiet morning, the family woke up to something unexpected. One by one, they each received a small white envelope. It wasn't a birthday card. It wasn't a wedding invite. It was hand-delivered and carried no smile, only truth. No one understood what it was at first. They just looked at each other, confused, holding the same envelope in their hands. When they opened it, their faces changed, eyes widened, mouths stayed open. Inside was a short message from Mia, just a few lines, but powerful enough to shake the whole house. It read, "This home is no longer shared property. It belongs to me. You have 14 days to vacate or respect boundaries. No long speech, no angry words, no explanations, just facts." At first, no one spoke. The room was filled with a silence so loud it felt like thunder. For years, they had gossiped about her behind her back. They had called her names, ignored her, pushed her aside like she didn't matter. They told her she wasn't family. They treated her like a stranger in her own home. But now, that same stranger had reminded them who she truly was. They were shocked. They had no idea that Mia's name was on the house deed. They thought she was just helping out, just paying bills because she was too kind. They never imagined she had real power. But now they had to face it. The house they once ruled with cold shoulders and loud voices no longer belonged to them. Not even a corner. It was hers. Mia didn't argue. She didn't shout or blame. She simply made it clear. She was done being disrespected in a place she paid for. If they wanted to stay, they had to change. Respect was the only rule now. No more control. No more insults. No more treating her like a guest. That time was over. Some family members folded the letter with shaky hands. Others read it again, hoping the words would change. But they didn't. The message was simple. Respect me or leave. And for the first time, they couldn't gossip their way out of it. They couldn't ignore it. They couldn't bully her. She wasn't asking anymore. She was deciding. Mia had been quiet for too long, but now her silence had become strength. That short letter was her voice, clear, firm, unshakable. The same family who once acted like she didn't exist now had to decide if they were ready to live under her roof, with her rules, or walk away. And that silence, that heavy pause after the letter, was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the house, but for Mia. Mia didn't need to shout. She didn't need to argue or remind them of all the wrong things they had done. She just stood at the front door, calm and steady, holding something small but powerful in her hand. The house keys. The same keys they had once taken from her like she was a maid, like she didn't matter. They had treated her like she was just there to serve them, like she had no real right to be in the house she paid for every month. Now everything had changed. The truth was out. Her name was on the deed. The letter had been sent. The silence had spoken. And now it was time for her to take back what was always hers. One by one, the family members came into the living room, confused and tense. They didn't know what to say. For once, they didn't have their usual loud opinions or hurtful words. They just stared at her, unsure, waiting. But Mia didn't let the moment slip away. She held the keys in her hand, raised them gently, and looked each of them straight in the eye. There was no anger in her face, no tears, just truth and peace. Then, in the softest but clearest voice, she said, "You called me a guest, so I'm asking you to leave, as one." That one sentence changed the whole room. No one moved. No one expected it. Some looked down in shame. Others looked away, too embarrassed to meet her eyes. It was quiet, but the message was louder than anything they had ever said to her. She wasn't kicking them out with hate. She was simply returning the same energy they had given her for years. They had called her a guest over and over again. So now, she was treating them the same way. She had tried to earn their love. She had tried to win their respect, but enough was enough. The keys were not just keys anymore. They were a symbol of her power, her voice, and her place. Mia wasn't a guest. She was the owner, and now she was setting the rule. Some of them quietly picked up their things. Some left without saying a word. Others stayed, but finally showed her the respect she had always deserved. No more pretending, no more game. Mia had taken the keys back, and with just one line, she reminded everyone this was her home, and she was done begging for space in it. After everything, Mia didn't throw everyone out of the house. That was never her plan. She didn't want to break the family apart. She only wanted the chaos to stop, the noise, the gossip, the disrespect. They had taken away her peace for too long. So she decided to clear the space, not of people, but of all the hurtful behavior that had been sitting there for years. She opened the doors, not to chase people away, but to let peace finally walk in. Jay saw everything clearly now. He realized how much Mia had suffered in silence, how his family had pushed her aside while she kept holding the house together. He stood by her this time, not just as a husband, but as someone ready to protect their peace. He set clear boundaries with his family. No more surprise visits. No more decisions made without Mia. No more treating her like she didn't matter. Mia didn't waste time. She started fresh. She began to change the house, little by little. Not with fancy things, but with things that made it feel like home. Her home. She moved furniture around, changed old curtains, brought in flowers, and put up pictures. Finally adding her own photo to the wall. For the first time, she wasn't just living in the house. She was living freely inside it. The air felt different, lighter, softer. There was no more walking on eggshells, no more forcing a smile to hide the pain. Laughter returned. Meals were shared without tension. Even the sunlight seemed warmer in the rooms. Their home didn't need to be big or perfect. It just needed to be theirs, built on respect and love, not fear and control. Jay and Mia would sit together in the evenings, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about little things. But it all felt right now. There was balance, there was peace, and most of all, there was mutual care. No one had to pretend anymore. Guests came, but with kindness. Conversations happened, but with understanding. The house had the same walls, same floors, and same roof, but everything inside had changed. Mia had found her voice, and that voice had created a home that truly felt safe. It was a new beginning, but in a place she already knew, a place where she had once been treated like a stranger, but now stood tall as the woman who owned her peace. and made the space better, not just for herself, but for everyone who chose respect over pride. Years passed, but Mia's story didn't fade. It grew. One day she was invited to speak at a women's conference. The hall was full of women from all walks of life, some broken, some healing, some still searching for their voice. Mia stood on the stage, calm and confident, holding the mic with a quiet strength that came from everything she had lived through. She didn't mention anyone's name. She didn't blame or shame. She simply told her truth. She spoke about how it felt to be called a guest in a place she had worked so hard to keep standing. She shared how painful it was to give everything, love, money, time, and still be treated like nothing. But she also shared how she rose from it, how she found her voice, how she claimed her space with grace, not bitterness. Her words reached hearts. Women in the crowd wiped their tears, nodding as if she was telling their own stories. The video of her speech later went viral online. People shared it with captions like, "From silence to strength," and "This is what owning your worth looks like." Mia's story became a message of hope, a reminder that kindness isn't weakness, and silence doesn't mean surrender. And far away, in living rooms where the air used to be filled with pride and control, her former in-laws watched that clip. They saw her on TV. They saw her name on lists of women being honored for leadership, strength, and resilience. They saw articles that called her a role model, a symbol of quiet power. Every time they saw her face, they remembered the woman they once dismissed, the one they called just a guest, the one they ignored, insulted, and tried to push out of her own home. And now, that same woman stood tall before the world, not for revenge, but for inspiring others. But Mia, she didn't smile with pride. She didn't boast. She simply kept walking with her head high. To her, home was never about a house. It wasn't about keys or titles. It was about being respected, about being seen, about having peace. She'd once been the guest everyone overlooked. Now, she was the queen everyone respected, and her story became a lesson, not just for those who hurt her, but for everyone who ever felt like they didn't belong. If you've ever been called just a guest in a place you helped build, if your silence was mistaken for weakness, let Mia's story remind you, you don't need to scream to be powerful. You don't need revenge to rise. Respect yourself, and the world will follow. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Tag a queen who deserves her crown, because home isn't where you're allowed to stay. It's where you're finally seen,